Rowan Hayes had navigated the labyrinthine halls of Crestwood Academy for precisely 47 days when Blair Kensington first slammed her against a locker. Rowan, a lean 5'6", possessed hair the color of burnt umber that seemed to absorb the harsh fluorescent lights, giving it an odd, almost fiery hue. Her attire consisted of well-worn denim and faded t-shirts, relics from her father's time in the service, which draped loosely over her slender frame. What Blair and her clique couldn't discern were the faint rope burns on Rowan's knuckles, testament to years spent scaling ropes in her father's makeshift garage gym, or the hardened calluses on her palms from countless hours striking a heavy bag. The Hayes family had relocated to Crestwood after her father's medical retirement from the military. Sergeant Caleb Hayes now worked the graveyard shift at Sawyer's Mill, his days largely consumed by sleep. Rowan's mother had passed away in a car accident when Rowan was 12, leaving father and daughter to forge their path as an unbreakable duo. Caleb had instilled in Rowan the principles of self-defense, not because he anticipated her needing to fight, but because he couldn't always be there to shield her. "Keep your head down until graduation," he'd advised her on her first morning at Crestwood. "Choose your battles wisely." But it seemed Rowan's battles chose her. Blair Kensington held dominion over the junior class, a reign secured by inherited wealth, cultivated malice, and the unwavering loyalty of two companions, Briar and Willow. Blair's father owned a chain of luxury car dealerships across the county, affording Blair a different high-end vehicle each week and an apparent immunity to consequences. Her blonde hair was meticulously maintained by professional stylists, and her wardrobe alone likely exceeded Rowan's father's monthly earnings. The targeting began subtly. Blair would accidentally jostle Rowan in the computer lab, causing her to lose unsaved work. She'd murmur snide remarks about Rowan's thrift store attire during English lit discussions. She'd orchestrate group assignments specifically to exclude Rowan, then feign concern to Ms. Thorne about Rowan's lack of engagement. "She smells like engine grease," Rowan overheard Blair confiding to Briar near the library's quiet study zone one Tuesday in October, probably because her dad's some kind of mechanic. Rowan's father wasn't a mechanic. He'd been a close-quarters combat instructor for elite forces before an incident overseas left him with significant hearing loss in one ear and persistent migraines. But Rowan offered no correction. Caleb had taught her that sometimes silence was the most potent response. The harassment intensified in November. Blair unearthed Rowan's social media profiles and began littering every post with disparaging comments. "Who let the stray in?" appeared beneath a photo of Rowan at her cousin's wedding. "The Goodwill store wants its inventory back," was plastered under a selfie Rowan had posted, celebrating her honor roll achievement. Rowan deleted the comments and privatized her accounts, but screenshots proliferated through group chats. Students she'd never interacted with began to snicker as she passed. Someone even created a fake online profile, Crestwood Charity Case, which posted daily updates on Rowan's outfits, complete with mock price estimates from discount stores. The school's anti-bullying policy mandated documentation of 3 distinct incidents before administration could intervene. Rowan reported the cyberbullying to her guidance counselor, Ms. Thorne, who promised to investigate, but explained that off-campus digital harassment fell into a grey area unless direct threats were involved. "Have they threatened you physically?" Ms. Thorne inquired during their mid-November meeting. "Not explicitly," Rowan conceded. "Then we'll monitor the situation and see if it escalates." It escalated. The day before Thanksgiving break, Rowan was exiting the auditorium after drama club practice when she found Blair, Briar, and Willow waiting in the stairwell. The auditorium stairs were ancient concrete, a relic from the 1960s when safety railings were more of an afterthought than a requirement. Students typically used the main hallway stairs, but drama club members often cut through the auditorium to reach the parking lot. Well, Blair purred, blocking Rowan's path. "If it isn't our little charity case." Rowan attempted to sidestep them, but Briar shifted to obstruct her. The stairwell was narrow, barely accommodating two people comfortably. "We need to talk," Willow said, her voice lacking Blair's confident malice. Willow had always been the reluctant participant in their schemes. "I'm trying to leave," Rowan stated, keeping her voice even, recalling her father's counsel about never betraying fear. "You're trying to ruin my reputation," Blair retorted, "spreading lies to Ms. Thorne about harassment. I never mentioned your name. Don't play coy. You think we don't know what you're doing, trying to get us in trouble because you can't handle a little teasing?" Rowan felt her phone vibrate in her pocket. Likely her father, texting that he was leaving work early to pick her up. If she could just stall for 10 minutes, he'd be there. "Look," Rowan said, "I don't want any trouble. Can we just pretend this never happened?" "Too late for that," Blair sneered. She stepped closer, forcing Rowan back toward the stairs. "You already made this our problem." "Blair, maybe we should—" Willow began. "Shut up," Briar interjected. "She needs to learn." Rowan felt the edge of the top step beneath her heel. The stairwell plunged 17 steps to the basement level, where it connected to the drama department's storage rooms. During the day, the area buzzed with activity, but after school it was deserted, save for the occasional janitor. "Learn what?" Rowan asked. "That actions have consequences," Blair declared. "You want to cry to counselors about bullying? Let me show you what real bullying looks like." Blair shoved Rowan hard in the chest with both hands. Rowan had been drilled for this. Her father had spent countless hours teaching her how to fall, how to roll, how to absorb impact. But training scenarios didn't account for unforgiving concrete stares at awkward angles, or the way a backpack laden with textbooks could shift your center of gravity at precisely the wrong moment. Rowan's left foot slipped off the step. She twisted, reaching for the railing, but the old metal rail was loose and gave way under her grip. She tumbled backward, her right shoulder striking the third step, her head bouncing off the fifth. Her left arm caught beneath her body weight on the 7th step with a sickening crack. She came to rest at the bottom of the stairwell, textbooks scattered around her like discarded thoughts. The silence lasted perhaps 3 seconds. "Oh my God," Briar whispered. "Rowan?" Willow called down. "Rowan, are you okay?" Rowan tried to respond, but when she opened her mouth, only a ragged gasp escaped. Her left arm was bent at an angle no limb should assume. Her right ankle throbbed with every heartbeat. Something warm trickled down the back of her neck. "We need to get help," Willow insisted. "No," Blair snapped. "We need to leave, now." "She's really hurt. She fell down the stairs. Accidents happen." "Blair, her arm is not our problem. She slipped. We weren't even here." Rowan heard footsteps retreating up the stairs. She tried to move, but the effort sent searing pain through her left side. Her vision kept blurring. She fumbled for her phone with her right hand, but it had skittered under a pile of papers during the fall. Rowan lay on the cold concrete for 22 agonizing minutes before Mr. O'Malley, the night janitor, discovered her. The ambulance ride was a dizzying blur of sirens and questions Rowan couldn't answer coherently. Her father met them at Evergreen Medical Center, still in his work uniform, smelling of sawdust and machine oil. When he saw Rowan on the gurney, his face cycled through several raw emotions before settling into the controlled calm he'd perfected during his tours of duty. The damage assessment took 4 hours, a compound fracture of the left forearm, a dislocated shoulder, a grade 2 concussion, severe bruising along her ribs and back, and a hairline crack in her right ankle. The doctors said she was fortunate the head injury wasn't worse. "How did this happen?" Caleb asked during the quiet lulls between nurses checking vitals. Rowan told him about the stairs, about slipping, about the railing giving way. She didn't mention Blair or the shove, not yet. "The school called," Caleb said. "They're reviewing safety protocols for the stairwells. Apparently that railing's been loose for months." Rowan spent 5 days in the hospital and returned home the day after Thanksgiving, with her left arm encased in a cast from wrist to shoulder, a walking boot on her right foot, and strict instructions to avoid physical activity for at least 8 weeks. The concussion left her with headaches that made reading arduous, meaning she'd have to rely on audiobooks and note-taking assistants to keep up with her classes. Caleb took family leave from Sawyer's Mill to care for her, which meant their already strained finances became even tighter. The hospital bills would take years to repay, even with his military insurance covering most of the costs. "We'll manage," he assured Rowan when she apologized for the expense. "That's what family does." During her recovery, Rowan had ample time to reflect. She replayed the moment at the top of the stairs repeatedly, dissecting Blair's words, Briar's positioning, Willow's reluctance. The more she thought about it, the angrier she became. Not just angry about the shove, but angry about everything. The months of harassment, the social media campaigns, the way Blair had calculated every move to remain just within the boundaries of what the school considered actionable. The way she'd walked away while Rowan lay broken at the bottom of the stairs. Most of all, Rowan was furious about her father working extra shifts to pay medical bills for injuries that were not his daughter's fault. In her 3rd week of recovery, Rowan asked Caleb to teach her to fight left-handed. "Your arm's still mending," he pointed out. "My right arm works fine." "Rowan, I know you're frustrated. I'm not frustrated. I'm ready." Caleb studied his daughter's face for a long moment. He'd seen that expression before, in the mirror after particularly grim days overseas. It was the look of someone who'd decided that being a victim was no longer an option. "All right," he said finally, "but we do this properly. No shortcuts, no rushing. And you don't use any of this unless you absolutely have to. Understood?" "I mean it, Rowan. Violence is a last resort, not a first option." "I know." They began with footwork, as Rowan could practice movement patterns without stressing her healing bones. Caleb had converted their garage into a basic gym years ago, with heavy bags, speed bags, and wrestling mats covering the concrete floor. During Rowan's recovery, it became their classroom. "Fighting isn't about being tough," Caleb explained during their first lesson. "It's about being smart. You study your opponent, you identify weaknesses, you create opportunities." Rowan learned to throw straight punches with her right hand while keeping her left arm protected. She practiced kicks with her good leg while maintaining balance despite the walking boot. Most importantly, she learned to think tactically. 3 opponents is a challenge, Caleb told her, but 3 opponents who aren't expecting resistance. That's an advantage. By Christmas break, Rowan's cast had been replaced with a removable brace, and the walking boot was gone. The concussion symptoms had mostly faded. Physically, she was healing well. Mentally, she was planning. The school's investigation into her accident had concluded that the loose railing was an infrastructure failure, not a safety protocol issue. The railing was repaired, warning signs were posted about reporting maintenance issues, and life at Crestwood Academy returned to its usual rhythm. Except Rowan's usual had changed. She returned to school in January, with her arm still in a brace, but otherwise appearing recovered. Blair and her friends had expected Rowan to transfer schools, or at least maintain a low profile. Instead, Rowan seemed almost self-assured, making eye contact in hallways and contributing actively during class discussions. "Look who's back," Blair said on Rowan's first day back, cornering her near the computer lab. "How's the arm?" "Getting stronger every day," Rowan replied. Something in her tone made Blair recoil slightly. "Good. Maybe next time you'll watch where you're going." "Oh, I'll definitely be more careful about who's behind me on stairs." Blair's eyes narrowed. "What's that supposed to mean?" "Nothing. Just general safety advice." For 3 weeks, Rowan played the part of a recovering victim. She attended physical therapy appointments, used her injury as an excuse to avoid gym class, and seemed to pose no threat to anyone, but she was watching, learning patterns, identifying opportunities. Blair's routine was predictable. Every Tuesday and Thursday, she stayed after school for student council meetings in the conference room near the main office. The meetings typically ran until 4:30, after which Blair would stop by her locker, then cut through the computer lab to reach the parking lot where Briar would be waiting in her car. Willow had been acting differently since Rowan's fall. She avoided eye contact in hallways and seemed uncomfortable during Blair's usual harassment campaigns. Rowan suspected Willow was struggling with guilt, which meant she might not be fully committed to helping Blair if trouble arose. On the last Thursday in January, Rowan put her plan into motion. She waited in the computer lab until 4:25, positioned at a workstation near the back exit. At exactly 4:31, Blair walked through the lab's main entrance, talking loudly into her phone about weekend plans. She was alone. Willow had apparently skipped the meeting, and Briar was waiting outside. "I know, right?" Blair was saying. "She thinks she's so clever now, but she's still the same pathetic—" She stopped talking when she noticed Rowan at the computer. "I'll call you back," Blair said, ending the phone call. "What are you doing here?" "Using the computer," Rowan said without looking up from the screen. "It's a computer lab. This lab closes at 4:30. Door was unlocked. Blair approached Rowan's workstation. "You're not supposed to be here." "Neither are you. I'm on student council. I have permission to be in the building after hours." Rowan finally looked up from the computer screen. "Do you have permission to push people downstairs?" The question hung in the air between them. Blair's expression cycled through several emotions before settling on practiced innocence. "I don't know what you're talking about," Blair said. "Of course you do." Rowan stood up slowly, favoring her left arm just enough to appear vulnerable. "You, Briar, and Willow, the auditorium stairs, right before Thanksgiving break. You fell, the railing was broken, after you shoved me." "Prove it." Rowan smiled. It wasn't a particularly pleasant smile. "I don't have to prove it. I just have to return the favor." Blair took a step backward. "Are you threatening me?" "I'm stating an intention. You can't touch me. My father will have you arrested." "For what? Having an accident?" Blair reached for her phone, but Rowan was faster. She grabbed Blair's wrist with her right hand, her strong hand, and applied just enough pressure to make Blair drop the phone. "Let go of me," Blair demanded. "Like you let go of me on the stairs." Rowan released Blair's wrist and took a step back. Blair immediately bent to retrieve her phone, which was exactly what Rowan had hoped she'd do. The moment Blair straightened up, Rowan struck her. It wasn't a wild swing or an emotional outburst. It was a textbook straight right cross, thrown with proper form and precise targeting. Rowan's fist connected with the left side of Blair's jaw, snapping her head to the right and dropping her to one knee. Blair stared up at Rowan in shock, one hand pressed to her face. "You crazy bitch! You broke my jaw!" "It's not broken," Rowan said calmly. "If it was broken, you wouldn't be talking." Blair tried to stand, but Rowan shoved her back down, not gently, but not with the same calculated violence she'd just demonstrated. "Here's what's going to happen," Rowan said. "You're going to stop. All of it. The comments, the social media, the whisper campaigns. You're going to tell your friends to stop, and if I even suspect you're planning retaliation, I'm going to explain to everyone exactly how I ended up at the bottom of those stairs. Nobody will believe you. Maybe not, but they'll definitely believe the security footage." Blair's eyes widened. "What security footage?" "The camera in the auditorium hallway. It doesn't cover the stairwell directly, but it shows the three of you following me toward the stairs, and it shows you running away afterward instead of getting help." This was a bluff. Rowan had checked, and the auditorium camera had been broken for months, but Blair didn't know that. "You're lying," Blair said, but her voice lacked conviction. "Am I? Want to find out what happens when I show that footage to the police? Because pushing someone downstairs isn't bullying, Blair. It's assault, aggravated assault since I was seriously injured." Rowan knelt down next to Blair, keeping her voice low and calm. My medical bills are almost $30,000. My father had to take unpaid leave to care for me. We might lose our house because of what you did. So believe me when I tell you that ending your social life is the least I'm willing to do for revenge. I could have you expelled for hitting me. Go ahead, explain to Principal Davies why you were alone in a computer lab with the girl you've been harassing for months. Explain why you didn't report the attack immediately. Explain why you're not calling the police right now. Blair opened and closed her mouth several times without speaking. Here's the thing about bullies, Rowan continued. You're only dangerous when people think you're untouchable. But everybody saw me break my arm falling downstairs, and everybody's going to see you walking around with a bruised face. They're going to do the math. Rowan stood up and shouldered her backpack. This ends now, Blair. All of it. Or next time I won't stop at one punch. She walked toward the computer lab's exit, then paused at the door. Oh, and Blair, if anything happens to Willow because she's feeling guilty about what you did, I'll hold you personally responsible for that too. Rowan left Blair sitting on the floor of the computer lab, one hand pressed to her swelling jaw, staring at her phone and trying to decide whether to call for help. The next day, Blair appeared at school with a bruise along her jawline that she claimed came from walking into a door. When classmates asked about it, she changed the subject quickly. She avoided eye contact with Rowan in hallways and didn't speak during the classes they shared. More importantly, the harassment stopped. No more social media comments, no more whispered insults, no more organized exclusion from group projects. Briar and Willow seemed confused by Blair's sudden disinterest in tormenting Rowan, but they didn't push for explanations. Willow actually approached Rowan a week later, stopping by her locker between classes. I wanted to apologize, Willow said quietly, about what happened before break, on the stairs. I know you didn't want to be there, Rowan replied. That doesn't make it okay. No, it doesn't, but it makes it forgivable. Willow nodded and started to walk away, then turned back. Blair's been acting weird lately, like she's scared of something. Maybe she finally realized that actions have consequences. Word spread quickly through Crestwood Academy's social ecosystem that something had shifted in the Rowan-Blair dynamic. Students who had previously avoided Rowan out of fear of Blair's retaliation began including her in conversations and group activities. Rowan's grades improved as she was no longer spending mental energy on harassment avoidance strategies. Most importantly, Rowan's father was able to return to his regular work schedule, which helped stabilize their finances. 3 weeks after the computer lab incident, Rowan was approached by Ms. Thorne, her guidance counselor. I wanted to check in, Ms. Thorne said during a scheduled meeting. How are you adjusting since returning from your injury? Much better, Rowan said. No more problems with harassment. That's wonderful to hear. Any idea what changed? Rowan considered her answer carefully. I think some people realized that picking on someone with a broken arm wasn't a good look. Well, whatever the reason, I'm glad things have improved. You seem more confident lately. I learned a lot during my recovery about standing up for myself. Good for you. Self-advocacy is an important skill. If Miss Thorne suspected there was more to the story, she didn't press for details. The anti-bullying policy required documentation of incidents, not explanations for why they stopped happening. Spring semester passed without major incident. Blair found new ways to occupy her time that didn't involve targeting other students. Briar and Willow drifted into different social circles. Rowan joined the debate team and discovered she enjoyed competitive argumentation when it was contained within established rules and boundaries. Her arm healed completely by April, though she continued training with her father in their garage gym. Not because she expected to need those skills again, but because she'd learned something important about the relationship between physical capability and mental confidence. Violence should always be a last resort, Caleb reminded her during one of their training sessions. But knowing you can defend yourself changes how you walk through the world. I know, Rowan said, throwing combinations at the heavy bag with both hands now fully functional. I also know that bullies don't usually expect their victims to hit back. True, but once you cross that line, there's no going back. People will always know you're capable of violence. Good. Caleb studied his daughter's face as she continued working the bag. She'd grown up considerably in the months since the stairwell incident. The quiet, withdrawn girl who tried to stay invisible had been replaced by someone who understood her own power and wasn't afraid to use it when necessary. Just remember, he said finally, the strongest people are the ones who don't have to prove their strength. I'll remember, Rowan promised, but I'll also remember that sometimes strength is the only language bullies understand. The school year ended without further confrontation. Blair graduated and went to college out of state. Briar and Willow apologized to Rowan during senior year, genuine apologies that acknowledged the harm they'd caused and their role in enabling Blair's behavior. Rowan graduated with honors and earned a partial scholarship to study criminal justice at the State University. She planned to become a victim's advocate, helping other people navigate systems that weren't always designed to protect the vulnerable. But she kept training in her father's garage because some lessons were too important to forget. Years later, when Rowan thought about the girl who'd been shoved down the auditorium stairs, she felt a mix of sympathy and pride. Sympathy for what that girl had endured, and pride for how she'd chosen to respond. The broken bones had healed, but the broken trust in institutional protection had led to something more valuable. The knowledge that sometimes justice required taking matters into your own hands. Rowan never regretted hitting Blair in the computer lab. It had been calculated, proportional, and effective. More importantly, it had ended the harassment without escalating into something worse. Sometimes the best way to stop a bully was to make them understand that their victim was no longer afraid of them. And sometimes that understanding required demonstrating that fear could flow in both directions. The weight of gravity had pulled Rowan down those stairs and taught her about helplessness, but gravity also powered the punch that taught Blair about consequences. In both cases, what went up eventually came down. The difference was learning to control the direction of the fall.